All right, good morning, everybody. Go ahead and get started here. If you got your questions, go ahead and post them. Should be below the video if you're on a smaller screen, to the right of the video if you're on a larger screen. All right, so we'll start here with Steven says, I started your distance course, and yes, interesting. I've already discovered a lot of faults in my swing, but one is really annoying to me. I have been recording my shots, and my practice swings actually look like a reasonable swing, but the moment there is a ball there, it turns into a hurried, ugly slash at the ball. Knowing this is happening now makes it hard to do what the drills are trying to get me to do. Any suggestions? So this is pretty normal, right? So I see this all the time, and usually what it is, if you look more closely at your practice swings, what most likely you're going to find is that if the golf ball was actually there, it would be a horrific golf shot, right? You may even miss the golf ball completely, right? So let's say that this is where I'm putting a ball here. This is where the ball would be. A lot of times when I see people take practice swings and they say, "Oh, my practice swing looks perfect," what's typically happening is the club is not working anywhere near where the ball is, and a lot of times the club face is wide open. That's usually what's happening is the club face is coming in wide open. So those you're making these things in your swing when the ball is there an effort to get the ball to go in the direction that you want, because if you literally made the swing that you make with your practice swing when the ball was there, it would be a terrible golf shot, right? So that's most likely. I would say it's probably a very, very, like, not over 95% chance that that is what's going on. It could be, the other 5% could be, maybe you are swinging through perfectly through the impact zone. It would be a dead center face strike. It would be, the face would be square. You're swinging on plane. Everything looks great. But when the ball's there, maybe you tighten up. Maybe, you just don't have the same mindset when the ball's there. That's rare. I don't usually see that. Most often that I see is that the practice swing is it's usually slower because we're not swinging with the effort to hit a ball powerfully. It's usually the face is wide open, and a lot of times the club head's working nowhere near where the ball is, right? So what a lot of times, the clubs, they're set up right here, right? So the ball would be right there. Then they're doing the practice swing, and they're like this, right? Or they're coming in, and the club face is wide open, right? That's usually what I'm seeing. So take a look at your practice swing, and you'll see, what's going on there. And if you want to swing more freely, we need to get, most likely the club face is open. That's the most common thing that I see, because that would make sense with what you're saying, that you're lashing at the ball, because that feeling of lashing at the ball is you trying to get that club face closed, right? You trying to get that club face around and closed and squared up if the face is open, right? Whereas when the ball's not there, you can just swing because there's no connection to the club face being open or closed because there's no ball there, right? So if that is the case, I would recommend a stronger grip and or better wrist angles, right? Or stronger wrist angles. So a stronger grip will be your lead hand more on top of the club, trail hand more under, right? That's going to get that club face in a stronger position to where you don't have to lash at it. You can swing through it more freely, and the face will be more square. Um, and or stronger wrist angles where maybe you're cupping your wrist, right, as you're coming down, getting that wrist more toward bowed or flexed. That can help get that club face closed as well. So that's most likely what's going on. Hard for me to know without seeing your swing, but that's most likely what's going on there. All right, so let's keep going here. So Bob B says, Q, after 3 years of relentless TSC instruction, I'm flushing the ball, often with 2003 Mizuno carbon steel blades. But at 65 years of age, I've lost a lot of distance. I've watched Is Clay debunked myths about all drivers and all golf balls, but does TSG have info about best balls for seniors generally or by swing speed? How about in 40-degree New England weather? Um, all the balls go the same distance. That's really what it comes down to. All the balls go the same distance. It's very, very marginal how different the balls fly. So there is no ball that's best for a senior golfer, right? It's really all the balls go the same distance. The main difference that you're going to see in golf balls is feel, right? Or there's a softer feel, firmer feel. And that's going to largely be based on the cover and how many layers the ball has and things like that. Uh, then there's going to be spin, right? Spin again, cover layers. That also makes a big difference in that. That's really kind of the two main things that you're going to see a difference in. So what I recommend for pretty much all golfers is I recommend getting because all the balls go the same distance. So what I recommend is if you can afford it to get a tour like a Pro V1, a Snell MTB Black, that kind of ball. Although they may have changed the name of their balls, but it's the same. It's pretty much the same golf ball for the most part. I recommend like a soft cover golf ball because that's going to get you the spin around the greens, right? We want to be able to get that spin around the greens. So that's what I recommend is a a tour level type golf ball. Obviously, Pro V1s are going to be $50, $50+ a dozen, but Snell makes very similar golf ball, performs very similarly. And I mean, if you did a blind test where you didn't have any labels on either one of them, you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So yeah, I recommend using that type of golf ball. But if you can't really tell the difference around the greens, and you like a harder feeling golf ball, then use like a Top Flight or Pinnacle or something like that. It's 100% fine. You can save some money doing that. But yeah, I would recommend the a tour level type golf ball. So that'd be basically any golf ball that a tour player plays. Titleist Pro V1, TaylorMade TP5, the Bridgestone B330X, whatever it is. I can't remember exactly what it's called. The Snell is a cheaper version. And the thing about Snell is that no tour players play their ball. It's because they don't pay anybody to play their ball. They don't do any advertising. They do direct to consumer. You can only get their balls on Amazon or on their website. You can't go to Dick's or PGA Superstore or anything like that to get their golf balls. So that's how they're able to sell you a golf ball at a cheaper price because of those things. So they kind of cut out the middleman and they don't pay anybody to use their balls. So when you buy Titleist and TaylorMade, you're kind of paying for those things. You're paying for the money that they're paying Rory or whoever using their ball to that's factored into the price, the advertising, all the commercials and all that. Snell doesn't do any of that. So that's maybe why you've never heard of them, but it's if you haven't heard of them. But that's what I'd recommend. They're usually $30-some a dozen, which is a great price for a golf ball of that caliber. So that's what I would recommend. But yeah, there's no golf ball that's going to fly farther with less club head speed compared to other ones. There's no golf. They're all going to fly not as far in 40-degree weather and all that stuff. So that's what I'd recommend. All right. So M. Vernez says, I have developed a bad habit of lifting the club on my takeaway. I have a lack of rotation. I am very steep and have to make major adjustments on the downswing to make contact. Any suggestions? Yeah, so I would work on your takeaway a little bit. So just kind of walking through it. If you're just kind of lifting the club up and going like that, then I would really focus on getting the club. Actually, the video that Clay that we posted this week, where we put the alignment stick on the shaft. This is a really good one to help you get some depth in your takeaway. So if you put an alignment stick down the shaft at address, it's going to be kind of on your left hip. And then when you bring it back, you want to have that still kind of on your left hip. So you can see here when I bring this back, that stick's still making contact with my left hip. And what that forces you to do is that kind of forces you to rotate. If I were to just kind of lift the club up, right, you can see how that's going to move away from my body. Whereas if I bring it back here, you can see I've had to turn my hips a little bit. I've had to turn my shoulders, right? And my hands have gotten more depth, right? They've moved in a little bit. And then that's going to help you to get that depth up to the top. So that'd be a great drill for you to do, that stick drill, and just doing a lot of reps with that. And then trying to work toward doing that with normal swings. All right, so Dennis says, I had my left hip replaced in the spring. Now when I played several rounds of golf, the hip gets sore and slows or stops my hips from rotating properly. This results in pulls and hooks to the left. Is there any change I should employ during a round to help compensate for the limited follow through? Yeah, you probably want to do a weaker grip because basically when our body stalls, the club is going to release, right? So if I come down and then my body stalls, the club's going to release, right? The reason for it is, imagine this way: if I'm swinging this club and then I suddenly stop my arm, right? What's the club going to do? It's going to release, right? If I keep turning around and round and round, that club's going to keep lagging behind my hands, right? So when we're coming down, let's say your hip's getting sore and you kind of stall your hips and you release the hands, that club face is getting too close, and that's why everything's kind of going to the left, right? That's why it's hooking, because the club face is getting too close. So we need to get the club face more open, and a way to do that would be with a weaker grip. So using a weaker grip can help you to allow that club to release and square up instead of the club releasing and the face getting too close, right? So I move toward a weaker grip, or feel like you're kind of holding the face open, right? So with the wrist angles, instead of kind of rolling the hands over, I maybe feel like you're kind of holding the face open to keep it open. But generally, a weaker grip is just going to be a little bit easier to get things to match up a little bit better. All right, keep the questions coming. I think that was the last one. Yep. So keep the questions coming. We got 45 minutes or so left here. All right, so Diane says, I was working through the master ball striking class, and I was having an issue with the fade. Can you demo the setup for a fade? So there's lots of ways that you can set up for a fade, but we have to understand is what needs to happen to get the ball to fade, right? So to get the ball to fade, the face needs to be open to the club path. That's what has to happen, right? So if you're struggling with hitting a fade, then you're struggling to get the face open to the club path, right? So if this is my target, let's say that this is my target line, right? Here's my ball, it's on the target line. Let's say that this alignment stick here is my target line. Then let's say if I want to hit a fade that's on target, use something else. If I want to hit a fade that's on target, that starts to the left of the target, then fades back toward the target, my club path has to be out to in relative to the target. Right. So let's say that this PVC pipe, this is going to represent my club path, right? So my club is working from outside the stick to inside the stick at contact. So that's going to be an out to in path, right? Now let's say I'll use my angle finder here to say the club face, right? So in order to hit a fade that's on target, my club face has to be open to this path. It has to be open to this. This is the direction that I'm swinging, open to this PVC pipe, but it has to be closed to the target in order for it to start to the left, right? If it's open to the target, it's going to start to the right and curve more to the right. I want to hit the ball on the target. So I need to be like this, right? My path needs to be to the left, and my face needs to be open to that path. but close to the target, right? So how can I set up to do that? Well, it's going to be different for every golfer, right? Personally, I'm someone who shallows out the club, right? I'm someone who swings, who basically brings that club to the inside and shallows it out. If you're someone who's coming down steep, who already kind of has an out to in path, it's probably going to be a little bit different for you, right? But if you're someone who shallows out the club well, then the way I would do it is I would align my body to the left of my target, right? That's going to allow me to shallow out the club relative to my body, but get the club working to the left relative to my target, right? So I can still shallow out the club relative to my body, right? You know, the butt end of the club's pointing to the right of my toe line here. That's shallowed out to my hands, and I'm able to swing this club left because I've aligned my body to the left, right? And then I just need to get my face open to that path to close the target. So ways that you can get the face open to that path would be a weaker grip. It could be with the wrist feeling like you're holding the face open as you're coming through contact. Personally, that's what I do. What I do is I'll set up with my body to the left, I'll shallow out the club, and then I'll feel like I'm kind of holding the face open. So instead of letting the momentum of the club kind of naturally turn the face over, I like to hold the face open, and then that gets that face open to the path to create a fade. That's how I do it. Now, how you do it may be completely different. If you're someone who already comes down steep, well, you're already swinging out to in. So if you angle your body more this way, you just swing out to in even more, which we don't want unless we're trying to hit a big slice. We don't want to do that, right? We're just trying to hit a little fade. Then you may just need to get your body aligned up, or if you're very much over the top, you may need to actually aim to the right with your body and swing over the top with an open face, right? So weaker grip is going to get the face more open. Holding the face more open is going to help you. But where your alignment is really just depends on what your club path is. You need to get your club path out to in. So if you get your club path out to in by your alignment being aligned to the left or square or to the right, it really just depends on you, right? So that's what you have to look at when you're working on that. All right. All right, let's keep going. So David S says, Q, I'm a senior golfer looking to get a new set of irons. What is the best way to go about sorting out all the choices? Is shaft important? Is club head, game improvement, clubs, tried, ping, G, 710, and like them? The most important thing is to get fitted. I wish I could tell you what exactly you need to do. Shaft is very important. Is the club head is very important. All of it's very important. So if you really want to know what works best for you, just get professionally fitted. That's what I recommend you do. A lot of places will fit you for free for the clubs. I know PGA Superstore used to do this. They may still do it, but even the fitting is not. I mean, compared if you're going to spend hundreds of dollars on clubs, a fitting can cost $100. I mean, it's going to be so much better for you to have something that's actually fitted to you. So if you're going to be spending the money on iron, spend the money to get fitted. It's really not that much of an additional cost. And like I said, a lot of places fit you for free if you buy the clubs from them. So I'd recommend go get professionally fitted. Yes, the shafts make a difference. Yes, the club heads make a difference. It all makes a difference. The combination of everything makes a difference because as far as shaft is concerned, right, they're going to get you in the right length of shaft. They're going to get you in the right weight of shaft, the swing weight of shaft, the right flex of shaft, right? All of those things make a difference, right? And then as far as the club head is concerned, the shape of the club head, you're talking about game improvement. Those are going to be a little bit more bulky. Typically, they're going to be higher launching to help you to get a little bit more distance. There's typically the game improvement ones typically have a little bit more weight on the bottom of the club to help the ball go up higher. So if you struggle with lower ball flight, if you don't have a lot of, as we get older, we lose some club head speed. So we lose some height on our shots. So it would be good, most likely, to get some height on those shots with maybe some irons that are like that. Um, Also, getting the clubs if they need to be more upright or flattened out. That's also very important. So that way the club is coming in nice and flush with the turf. Also very important, right? So there's a lot of aspects there that you need to look at. The other thing that you need to look at, especially as a senior golfer, right, is you may want to introduce more hybrids into the bag and remove irons from the bag. When you have more club head speed and also the way that they're making clubs now, they're making the clubs with less loft on them. So the clubs, the standard clubs that are coming out now are more and more difficult for lower club head speed players to hit because they take the loft off of them to make them longer, right? And really what they're doing is they're taking their clubs and they're just taking the 7-iron and turning that into a 6-iron, right? I saw a commercial several years ago about it was Titleist, and they had all these people on. And I'm picking on Titleist. I think all of the club companies have done this for the most part, but basically they had all these guys hitting these shots. Oh man, I hit that 10 yards farther, hit 10 yards farther, and I'm just sitting here scratching my head like there. I doubt it. Right. I'm saying I'm sure they hit the 7-iron 10 yards farther than the current 7-iron, but let's actually see what's going on. And what's funny is that it was for the Titleist AP2 irons, and I had the original set of the AP2 irons when I was in college. Awesome irons, loved those irons. I only got rid of them a few. I mean, I played them for 10 years, probably. Um, Love those irons. But the lofts that are on the current AP2 irons are much stronger than the ones that were on the irons that I had. So it was like a 7-iron was a 6-iron. Well, yeah, you hit your 6-iron farther, so it wasn't quite that like a whole club of loft, but it was like 2.5 degrees stronger on the lofts. So it's you're gaining like a half a club or so just by changing the loft on the club. So um, so because of that, the irons are getting harder to hit. Like a 4-iron is much harder to hit now than it used to be because it's basically like a 3-iron. A 3-iron is now basically like a 2-iron, and so on and so forth. So as you can imagine, the clubs are getting harder to hit because of the loft as far as getting it up in the air, right? So for players whose club head speeds are going down, that's not really the best fit. So you probably want to introduce more hybrids into the bag, right? So instead of having, a typical setup, you're going to see like pitching wedge through 4-iron, right? Well, if you do that nowadays, if you don't have a lot of club head speed, it may be hard to hit that 4 and 5 and maybe even the 6-iron. It may be hard to hit those clubs because there may not be enough speed there, right? Club head speed there. So it may be better to introduce like a hybrid, 4 or 5, maybe even 6 hybrid into the bag. Because a hybrid, the way that the club is shaped, it's shaped to help you to get the ball up in the air more, right? To get higher launch. That's kind of the whole idea of a hybrid is, fairway woods, they tend to launch lower, right? Whereas a hybrid will launch a little bit higher. So you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. You're getting a fairway wood and a hybrid and an iron, right? You're getting the best of both worlds where you can swing it like an iron, but you're going to get the height, right? Because the irons tend to fly too low. So getting professionally fitted will help you to know, okay, I need to have this. They're gonna get all that worked out for you. As far as a place I would recommend going um, for the most thorough fitting, I would recommend outside of maybe a local person that you've heard like word of mouth does a really good job, things like that. Club Champions a great place to go. You're going to get a really thorough fitting there, and they're going to be testing all of those things. So definitely, I would recommend them. They're located in major cities all over the country. I don't have any affiliation with them. I've just been to them before, and I think that they do a really good job. So we have 2 locations here in the Orlando area, but I know in major cities all over the country they have they have places. But PGA Superstore is a good place to go. Golf Galaxy can be a good place to go. I mean, it can be hit or miss. You may go to one place that has a great fitter and another place that does, that maybe doesn't do the greatest job. I know that the club champion seems to be fairly consistent with the people that they bring in, whereas it can be hit or miss. I know at like PGA Superstorm and Golf Galaxy and things like that. So, but yeah, I would definitely recommend getting fitted so that way what you need. I wish there was a way for me to tell you, oh yeah, senior clubs, you need to have this, this, and this, and this. But unfortunately, there just isn't any way for me to know because everybody's different. I've worked with senior golfers that have a lot of club head speed, more club head speed than 30-year-olds that that I've worked with as well, and then vice versa. So it's it's not everybody's the same. So you just have to go and get professionally fitted if you truly want to know what works the best for you. All right. Let's keep going here. So BJ says, hi Q, when using a 60-degree club to hit a chip shot near the green, I open the club at address. When laying the club flat open next to the ball at address, it is then lying at an angle. It is then lying at an angle to the ball. Should I move my feet so the flat club head is square, or just leave it angled and rotate through the shot? I guess I don't understand what you mean by it's lying at an angle to the ball. And the club head flat open. Like the club face is open. I guess I don't understand. I mean, the ball's going to go in the direction that the face is pointing, right? So if you have the face open, you either need to lower the hands to square it up, or you just kind of let it, kind of aim your body to the left to let it go to the right. I guess I don't understand what you're trying to do. So Dennis C says, it rained a lot in league yesterday. On one hole, my approach went slightly off the right and ended up buried in 4-inch of rough just off the fringe. Since I was short-sighted, I tried to pop out of the 60-degree wedge. When I swung the club, the grass wrapped around the club, and the ball went almost nowhere. How should I pop out of this lie? You got to practice it. It sounds like you kind of went through the right thing, but you got to come in more steeply to get the club into the grass to pop it out. So I would practice that. And you probably just didn't hit it with enough force either. What we have to understand too is, that's a crappy situation, right? So you're short-sighted, right? If I had to guess, you probably didn't swing hard enough because you were short-sighted, because you were afraid to hit it fat past the hole. But sometimes we got to take our medicine, right? If we're in a situation, the goal of what you have right there when it's in the buried rough, your goal is just to get that ball onto the green so that way you can have a chance of getting up and down, right? So I would practice that shot so that way you're better at it. But it sounded like you did the right thing. Feet close together, ball off the back foot. We want to be kind of risky with it, right? We're going to open the face a little bit. We're going to be risky with it, and we're going to we got to really throw that club down in there, right? And it's not a shot that you're really going to be able to control the distance with it very much, because you don't know how that's going to react in there. So it sounds like it was thick, wet grass, right? You're going to have to give it some juice, right? You're going to have to give it some speed to get it up out of there. Sometimes you might it may surprise you, and the club may make it through the grass pretty well, and you catch more of the ball, and the ball goes pretty far, right? Well, at least you still have a putt, right? And maybe another time you hit it and it just barely comes out and it dribbles onto the green, and then you have like a 3-footer, right? You got to tap in. That's how it's going to work sometimes. It's tough to be consistent out of that. So now the more you practice it, the more you're going to gain a feel for it. It's definitely something you have to practice to get good at. but it sounds like you went through the right process. You just didn't hit it hard enough. So I would go practice it so that way you can learn, okay, how hard do I really need to hit this? And I would make sure that you're coming down steeply on it, right? So ball back in the stance, and we're kind of wristing this club up, right? So it's going to be a lot of wrist, and we're going to throw this club down right behind the ball, right? Right behind the ball, so that way it can pop out. It sound, if you came in and you kind of come in more shallow, that the grass is definitely going to eat up that ball. So I would go practice that, practice kind of wristing it up, and then kind of throwing the club down behind it, and you'll be more successful with it. So David S has great information. Thanks. No problem, David. So Diane says, hi Q, I had the loft adjusted on my lob wedge 50-10 changed to 48 degree. I'm told that it lowers the bounce to 8. Is there anything you have to be aware of when shipping around the green with loft bounce wedges? I guess I don't understand like is there anything you have to be aware of? I mean, if you lower the bounce, the club's going to tend to dig more, right? Um, so lowering the bounce too much, because that bounce is kind of your safety net that allows you to kind of glide on the turf a little bit, not dig as much. So if you de-loft the club, right? So if I do this and then I de-loft the club, that leading edge is going to be angled more down, and it's going to tend to dig more, right? So, if we take off the bounce, we don't have as much to, we don't have as big of a safety net there. So you just have to be more precise with where you're hitting the ground with the bounce. Now, if you want to engage more bounce, which you can in more loft, what you can do is you can open the face a little bit, right? So if you open up the face a little bit, that can help you to get more bounce in there, and also more loft. All right, we got 30 minutes or so left here. All right, so Diane says, I tried the drill this morning that Clay had with the alignment stick on the 8-iron, and he took it halfway back, the alignment stick touching the side. I was having difficulty keeping touching my side. Any suggestions? Yeah, go slower. Go slower. Go as slow as you have to go to be able to do it. So obviously, you're probably kind of moving it off of your body. Is a normal tendency, right? So that means you're more than likely kind of pushing your hands out away from you and bringing the club too far inside, right? So I probably just go nice and slow with it. Make sure you're bringing those hands in, club out, right? Go nice and slow with it. That's what with everything you do. I wish you could just change things just like that, right? But we're not really going to be able to do that. You have to train things, right? So the key to changing things in your golf swing is to regress things to where you can do them and then progress them from there, right? So if you're having difficulty doing something, right, then that means that that drill may be a good thing for you because you're obviously doing something that you shouldn't be doing, right? So um, so what you have to do is go slow. And if you put the reps in and you go slow, then eventually you'll get better and better and better at it. And then you can go faster. Right. So that's really, I wish I had something that I could just tell you like, oh yeah, just do this. And you're just going to start doing that drill perfectly. But that's not really how it works. You got to go slow, break it down to where you can do it, regress it to where you can do it, and then progress it from there. So Dennis P says your answer is my short-sighted lob shot was right on target. Now be should I try laying the 60 open more, which would allow to hit it harder? I didn't think of using a wristy angle, but I'll definitely give it a try. Yeah, you can. So yeah, face is going to be pretty open. Be more risky with it. Drop that loft right behind the ball so you can pop it out. So John G says, I just saw the video that Clay posted this morning regarding the proper takeaway. Cool. Did you have a question about it or anything? Yeah, let me know. Guess you might have just pressed enter too quickly. No worries. Yeah, if you have a question about it, let me know. I'll try to help. So Diane says, are there only online lessons or are there in-person lessons? Robin, Robin, our director of instruction, he does in-person lessons. So if you're interested, you can click the instruction tab, and then there's a link in there for the in-person lessons if you want to check that out. Unfortunately, I'm not able to do in-person lessons at this time, just with my responsibilities with the company and everything. Um, so yeah. So Dennis says, "What is the best way to contact one of the instructors? I had enrolled with Michael, but couldn't participate because the OnForm app doesn't play well with Android phones." So the OnForm app does work on Android phones. If you have a really old model of an Android phone, it may not work well. Like I had a student that signed up and has a Pixel 3, which is, I don't know how old the Pixel 3 is. Let's see here. So yeah, so that's a 5-year-old phone. Which really isn't that old, but it's a 5-year-old phone. So if you have a very old phone, it may not work well. But they actually just updated their Android app like a month or so ago, and it works fine. So what I would say is if you have a really old Android phone, it's not going to work well, or it may not work at all for some reason. I would maybe get in contact with their support on that. But I just kind of found that out recently. So if you have a 5-year-old phone, it may not work. But the app itself, on my phone, I have an Android phone, and they've just updated the app, and it works better. Still doesn't have as many features as the Apple version, but it's definitely an upgrade from where it was before. Outside of that, if you have an iPad, you can use an iPad. You can also use your computer, so you can log in from the computer and do it that way. But if you signed up with Michael, then then you should have his email because he should have emailed you. So that would be how you would contact your instructor if that is the case. But if you're working with him on OnForm, you'd want to communicate with him on OnForm. But like I said, you can use like that student that I have that has the Pixel 3 and where the app doesn't work well. He actually, what he's doing is he's sorry, I'm trying to think exactly what he's doing. So he's he's recording the videos, putting them on his computer from his phone, and then so he's recording with his phone, then putting it on his computer, and then he's loading it from the computer, which you can do. There is a login from the computer that you can use. Now, again, on the computer, not near as many features, right? But you can send videos through the computer. So that's also an option as well. So John G says on the downswing, Clay does try to hit the inside quarter of the ball. On the downswing, does Clay try to hit the inside quarter of the ball? I mean, I don't know what Clay's trying to do necessarily, but that's probably a good thought for most people to have because most people are coming down steep. And if we have the sensation of now, even if you have that sensation, you're literally not doing that. You're mostly hitting the back of the ball. Like you have to think about it. If you would have to swing so far from the inside, like you'd have to swing like this to hit the inside quarter of the ball. So, but if we're coming in like this, we're hitting the back of the ball, maybe just slightly to the inside of the back of the ball. But it would more than likely be a good feeling for most people to feel like they're hitting the inside portion of the ball. So if I'm using this, right? So if you look at kind of where this the barcode is on this ball, if I can get it to sit still. There we go. So I don't know if you can see the barcode on there. There we go. You might be able to see it now. So you see there's a little spot right there. It may be good for a lot of people to feel like they're hitting that part of the ball, right? Because a lot of people are coming over the top and steep and kind of hitting a little bit on the outside of the ball. So it would generally be a good feeling for most people. Now, if you're someone who's overdoing this, you're swinging too much from the inside, you're struggling with hooks and blocks and things like that, then that may not be a good thing for you to do, right? But most golfers would most likely benefit from that feeling of hitting the inside part of the ball. So Dennis says, my phone is a 1-year-old Motorola and it doesn't play well. I contacted OnForm support and they acknowledge this problem exists with certain Androids. I see. Now I'm saving up to purchase an iPad. I really like features of the OnForm app, but on my phone, it won't give me the ability to type information so I can communicate with Michael. Yeah. So what I would recommend doing is go log on to it on your on the computer And you may find it easier to actually do it from the computer as well. So if you go to, I believe, unless they've changed it, I think it's getonform.com. Yes. So I think you can just put in onform.com as well. So if you go to onform.com, and then if you hover the mouse cursor over the home and then select web app sign in, you just sign in right there, and then you can communicate with him through there. That's what I would recommend doing, because that's what I'm doing with one of my students, that the app just flat out will not work on the Pixel 3. So I didn't realize that. I thought maybe it was just because the phone was older, but maybe partly because of that. I didn't realize there's just some models that don't work well. But yeah, you can. He can't even download the app. Like, it won't even let him download it. But iPad works great. That's what I use for the lessons. I use an iPad. Just a note on that. I'd make sure that you get an iPad that that has a good camera on it, and that at least has the AI thing on it, so that way you can use the auto detect feature, which is nice. So if you use an older iPad, it may not have the auto detect feature. So I just make sure I buy an iPad that's, no more than a year or two old, I would say. You wouldn't want to buy like a 2020 model or something. I mean, you could. I mean, you'd still be able to work it fine, but you wouldn't get that feature, the auto detect feature, which is nice to have. All right, we got about 13 minutes left here. If we got any more questions. All right, so we got a couple more questions here. This is BJ says, "Hi Q. To clarify my earlier question, when I address the ball with my 60-degree iron at setup and then open the club face is then at an angle to the ball. Should I open my stance up to better square up the open club face? Thanks." Yeah, so you can either do that or lower the hands, right? Because the ball is going to start in the direction of the club face, right? So let me move this. There we go. So if I put my angle finder on here, and let's say I set up normally kind of like this, square club face, right? But then I open the face, right? Well, now that's going to start in that direction, right? If I were to just hit the ball, it's going to start in that direction. But if I then have that face open and then lower my hands, now look at where the club face goes, right? So now that face is more squared up. Now, I don't really recommend doing that off of turf. I'd recommend just kind of understanding the ball is going to go off to the right a little bit more. It's going to go in the direction of the club face. When hitting off the turf, I actually prefer to see the toe down a little bit, which is going to make the ball go a little bit more to the right. You don't need to open up the face that much. I would actually prefer you to open up the face maybe just slightly and have the toe down a little bit for like a normal chip shot. Because if we have the toe down a little bit, it's a lot easier to get underneath the ball. I bet you'll find you'll be more successful with it if you do that. Now, out of the bunker, I like to see this down because it's going to help it come out higher. And you have the face so open that you're engaging the bounce a lot more, and then that's going to allow it to get through the sand a little bit. So I like the hands low for a bunker shot, and I like the hands a little bit higher for shots off the turf because it's just gonna make it easier to interact with the ground. All right, let's keep going here. So 10 says, previously I had only the sand wedge and pitching wedge and know my distances with them. Just got 3 wedges, 52, 56, and 60. Not sure when to use these. So you use them in the same way. You just have a gap now in between. So for me, what I use is basically I use, just to tell you, and this can be different with everybody. You know, some tour players or some players may do things differently, but I'll just tell you what I do. So I have a similar setup, except I go 58, 54, and 50. So I'm just like 2 degrees off from what you are, but it's the same kind of setup. All right. So 50, I use my 58 degree basically for almost all shots, is as far as where I'm using a wedge, where I need to get it up in the air with spin, within 30 yards of the green. That's personally what I do. I don't. Now some, there are definitely players that use their lob wedge from 100 yards, right? But I just prefer to use my next lowest lofted club because I get plenty of spin with it. Now, if I'm in a situation where I need to get a little bit more spin from 50 yards or something like that, I might use my 58 degree to help me get a little bit more spin. But generally, I get plenty of spin with my 54 degree from that range, and I like the trajectory that it comes out at. So that's why I prefer that. So I use my 54 from 30 to 100 yards, and then I'll use my 50 from basically 100 to 130 yards, and that's the way that I do it. Now there might be some situations where I use a 54 or a 50 from closer range, because if I'm trying to hit like a bump and run or something like that from close range or something like that, that might be a situation where I would use that. But generally, that's not very often. Usually, if I'm within 30 yards and I'm trying to get spin, right, then I'm going to be using my 58. If I'm in a situation where I'm using a wedge. All right, we got about 5 minutes or so left here. If we got any more questions, keep them coming. So 10 says, thank you. When using wedges in the downswing, do you always stop when the club is in front of your left leg, or do you swing through to finish your swing? Swing through to finish your swing. We don't need to intentionally stop the body from rotating because it's going to do it on its own, right? We can't keep spinning around and round and round and round like a top, right? We're going to reach end ranges of motion. So if we intentionally stop, the club is going to tend to release too much. Now, if you're trying to get the club to release more, so if it's like a bunker shot, right, where we're actually trying to get the club to release, this is the bunker shot is going to be a very armsy and wristy, a greenside bunker shot. That is, it's going to be a very armsy and wristy kind of swing. Your lower body is going to be fairly, it's not going to rotate as much, right? because you are trying to get the club to release, right? But for pretty much any other wedge shot where we want to have a little bit of shaft lean as we're coming in, right? We want our body to rotate through. So we don't need to try to get the body. We don't need to intentionally stop the body because that will tend to lead to an early release. Now, if you're someone who's getting too much shaft lean, you're digging the club in the ground with too much shaft lean, it may be a good feel for you to have, right? Because golf is a game of adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. So that may be a feel that would be good to have, but obviously it wouldn't be like the exact reality. All right, so Greg C says, been working on getting less wristy around the greens with chip shots, narrow stance, heel slightly up, using one piece rotational approach. I'm seeing more consistency, but used to get 2 to 3 hops, then check, which I prefer. With this new approach, while more consistent, I'm getting almost on the fly first bounce check instead, which makes longer chip shots tougher to judge. Use a less lofted club. That's what I'd recommend doing. So instead of using a wedge, if you're getting that too much of a stop, or you could get your hands a little bit more forward to de-loft it, right? So that'd be kind of the two things I'd be looking at. So either use, so if let's say you're using like a 60 degree in those situations or a high lofted club, I would just use a lower lofted club. Maybe use your 50 degree, maybe use a 9 iron, and you'll get less check on it. Or what you can do is you can get your hands a little bit more forward, right? So throw that hands a little bit more forward, and that'll de-loft the club. I would actually prefer, if I was choosing between the two, I'd use less lofted club, so that way, because if you get the hands more forward, that eliminates some of the bounce if you get them too far forward, right? So if you're using like a 60 degree and you're saying, hey, I want to get this to roll out a little bit, I would much rather you use like a 9 iron instead of doing this, because that can make the club dig a little bit. So I'd much rather use a 9 iron with just a little bit of shaft lean and kind of use that same motion that's working well for you. So I just use less loft, and that's going to help you to get that working a little bit better. So Dana says, I have the same 60, 56, 52 wedge angles. I use my pitching wedge. Not sure what that word is. At 120-ish, my 52 at 105-ish, 56 at 85-ish, and it's the same wedge, my 60 about 70 yards. And I have a high lip around the trap or high bank up to the green, but I do a lot of 20 to 30 yard tosses to the green with my 56. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Dan. So Tin says, when I take a really strong grip, especially with my right hand, I tend to hit the driver straight. I don't do this with my irons because I tend to hook. Is it okay to have a different grip for irons, less strong, And for driver, more strong. Yes, that is 100% fine. Yes. That is totally fine. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow, Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to y'all next time.